The new Space Marine army rules aren't particularly clear to a lot of people at first glance. Let's have a quick look at the various ways we can construct Space Marine detachments and full armies. Hello again and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel where we've been going over the new Space Marine codex in detail. In today's quick tip video, we'll be taking a look at the various different ways that you can build Space Marine armies, as Games Workshop have quite cleverly designed the rules so you get different levels of benefits for how much mixing and matching you do out of your army. I'm going to go through the various tiers of Space Marine purity, shall we say, and what you access for each one. We're going to presume Battleforged lists for this, playing in matched play. So first of all, you can field a mixed detachment of Space Marines from any codex, provided they have the Adeptus Astartes keyword. So this means that you could mix, say, Rebuse Guilliman in a Supreme Command detachment with a Space Wolf Rune Priest and a Dark Angels Librarian, and a Chaplain Dreadnought, for example. Now this gives you the least amount of benefits. It doesn't give you the chapter tactic for any of the models, so for example Guilliman wouldn't get to fall back and shoot, despite being an Ultramarine. I do find it quite funny that he forgets his own codex that he wrote just because he happens to be standing next to some Space Wolves and other non-blue Space Marines. The reason you'd want to take a weird looking detachment like this is mainly so you can have access to a bunch of powerful HQ choices. In particular, it's quite good for throwing in a lot of psychic powers from various codexes. I've seen competitive lists that utilise multiple stacking -1 to hit debuffs to make a unit or two useless on the board. It's particularly easy to do this for the Dark Angels and Space Wolf Psychers. It's also a good way of including, say for example, Guilliman if you just want him along to buff other Imperial units by his re-rolling wands ability, for example with Knights, though you might be better served just taking him in a super heavy auxiliary detachment for this. This way would also let you put together a whole bunch of named Space Marine characters if you just think their stat lines are generically strong without any of the buffs that their chapter ability or doctrines gives them. The next level of purity would be to take a Space Marine detachment that is entirely from the same chapter, so say taking a detachment of Salamanders in an army that isn't purely Space Marines. This way they will get their chapter trait of ignoring AP-1 modifiers and those lovely Sally's rerolls. They won't however gain access to combat doctrines if you're including models in the army without the Angels of Death special rule, but you do gain access to the relics and the stratagems for that detachment, and just being able to access the stratagems is very powerful indeed. The next level up is to play an entire army of Space Marines from the new codex that all have the Angels of Death keyword, but to have separate detachments from different chapters or successor chapters. So for example, you could have a Raven Guard detachment alongside an Iron Hands detachment. Now this could potentially be very powerful, as you now get access to the combat doctrines, so that's the Devastator, Tactical and Assault doctrines. Depending on which one you're in, you'll get the additional -AP to that weapon type. The reason you might want to do this is if you want to combo together some of the strongest aspects of two different, such as using a nasty Iron Hands relic like the Ironstone on your vehicles, while having access to a detachment of Raven Guards so you can use their very nasty stratagems on the Raven Guard component of your list. And that might well be worth giving up the Super Doctrine for, as you can pile all of, say, your vehicles into the Iron Hands detachment to take advantage of their great chapter tactic for vehicles, and you can pile all of your infantry into Raven Guard to take advantage of their infantry focused chapter tactic and also their stratagems. The main thing that you lose is access to the army's super doctrine, so the Iron Hands Calculated Fury for example, where you move and then heavy weapons don't suffer the -1 to hit penalty for moving and you get to re-roll ones with heavy weapons. And finally, the most pure way to field an army is just literally to take an entire army consisting of one chapter or one successor chapter. So for example, you could take Iron Hands and nothing else and you'd get the entire raft of benefits, including their chapter tactic, the combat doctrines which would give you the extra AP -1, and also their boosted doctrine which gives them the benefits for firing heavy weapons that I mentioned before. If you're the pure chapter, that's Iron Hands itself, then you get access to all of the contents of the Iron Hands Codex. If you're playing as a successor chapter of Iron Hands, then you get access to almost all of the Codex. The only thing that you miss out on are some of the relics. and you can still buy in one of those restricted relics with an extra command point as specified in the Iron Hands codex. And of course you can't take special characters that are from the parent codex, such as an Iron Hands special character has to be played as Iron Hands, you can't play him as a successor. One thing that I've seen people getting wrong is that they think that for a successor chapter to be an Iron Hands successor, you have to take the successor trait of Inheritors of the Primarch. This actually totally isn't the case, the way the rule is worded, so you could have a Master Artisans and Stealthy successor chapter that gets lots of rerolls and bonuses to their cover, and play them as Iron Hands successors to access the move and shoot with heavy weapons and reroll ones when firing with heavy weapons for their calculated fury. In fact, besides fluff purposes, there is actually no point in competitively taking the trait Inheritors of the Primarch. You may as well just run your Marines as pure Iron Hands or Ultramarines rather than use the Inheritors of the Primarch trait, because all this gets you is restricting access to certain relics and the named special characters, and doesn't gain you anything at all. Overall, I like the way that Games Workshop is encouraging you to build more pure armies by stacking benefits the more you keep to one codex, but isn't really punishing you for playing with allies, as often the access to different units or stratagems will actually be more powerful than getting that super doctrine bonus. For example, I could happily see a Raven Guard or Raven Guard successor chapter being used in an Imperial Soup army to drop in Assault Centurions or Aggressors or the like, as those units are still going to be brutally effective when deployed at close range whether or not they have the doctrines. I think everyone has been very quick to rush off and say, yes, let's just play pure Marines of one codex now, but there's a lot of tactical options on the spectrum between standard Imperial Allies armies and pure Marines of one codex, and I look forward to seeing what lists people come up with to take advantage of this. Thanks very much for watching another Auspex Tactics video. Please correct me if I've made any errors at all on this video. Space Marine army building has become quite complex, and there might be subtleties that I've missed along the way. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more Space Marine content over the next few weeks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.